find your own justice. This memorable day marks your graduation from your false self.
Don't freeze.
I never freeze.
Why don't you say whatever speech you got rehearsed?
You don't get to rush this.
And the people who hear it, they'll never forget me. Part of me will echo in their hearts forever.
Who's relying on me to help her? How can I call myself a hero who saves everybody? Take me with you! Take me!
Yo, what's good with you on the web? This your man Q, aka the Geek, back again, and we is not about to, no, we not doing no super editing. Hopefully y'all are well. Welcome back to Geek Talk. And before we go any further, if you like the content that you've been seeing, please do me a favor and make sure you hit that like button. And don't forget to subscribe. We got a lot of stuff to talk about today. But before we get into the Chrono Trigger HD-2D remake, or the millions and millions of units that sold by Final Fantasy 16, people tripping, let's dive into happy 4th of July. And that goes for whether you celebrate it or you don't celebrate it, whether you want to dig into the whole civil liberties and freedom, which we're not going to do here on this channel, but I'm pretty sure you got the day off. And if you don't, I'm sorry if you don't have the day off. For black folks, you know, it's like another free day to barbecue. Even though I'm technically I'm not gonna be barbecuing, but you know, a lot of folks barbecuing. I can smell it in the air. What y'all got planned? I was supposed to go to Anime Expo this year, but what had happened was I want a new PC. I really do. I want more hard drive. I need to buy a server, X, Y, and Z. So I decided that, you know what? I'm not going to go to Anime Expo this year. Forget it. The Nico Robin picture I wanted that I was supposed to get last year. The Uraka picture that I was supposed to get last year. Well, guess what? I ain't getting it because I didn't end up going. And of course, as it would happen, the time that I didn't decide to go, a whole bunch of the content creators and influencers I follow, well, they're at Anime Expo. And I always suggest the Expo to anybody. Oh, speaking of, hello, ladies. That was to all the ladies that I missed at the Expo because I didn't go. Dramatic pause with the crickets, intentional, because, yeah, I ain't got a button yet for the crickets, but it's coming. I got the cricket sound. I just haven't uploaded it to my deck yet. But, you know, I wish I could have went, but I waited too long. I probably could go tomorrow and get, like, you know, they give you the bargain tickets and stuff, but I don't feel like fighting with all these folks out on the 4th. Really, not the 4th of July, but the 3rd of July. So, you know what? I'm going to take the day and relax and probably, you know, yeah, not going to be relaxed and work on some stuff. There is next year, and what I really want to go to this year personally is the Twitch Con. I think that's in Vegas, and it happens in October. So I do want to go to that. But I always suggest, I think I was saying it before, and Nat start fighting with me, was cons are a lot of walking and a lot of people. So if you don't like a lot of walking and a lot of people and a lot of smells, it is, you know, that's my folks, fellow geeks, dweebs, nerds, weebs out there. I love y'all, but it smells like hot ass and Cheetos a lot of time. And out here in SoCal in LA, it get hot. It's been hot lately. So those aren't winning combinations, but There is next year. There is next year. I did see some screens of Grand Blue Fantasy. It was playable. I did get a chance last year to play Lost Odyssey, which I really did like, even though I didn't pick up. I mean, there's so many games out. What do y'all want me to do? What do you want me to do? At least we know, though, for real, that Grand Blue Fantasy exists. Because we've seen it. There's demos. There's something out there. But I want to transition to something else that's word on the web, aka another headline. The demo for Pikmin 4 dropped a few days ago, and guess what, y'all? Something surprising happened. You know what that is? Pikmin has black folks on it. Okay, well, kinda. Look, I got excited when I first seen it too. The game doesn't have any like main protagonists, you know, that are black, like Olimar or his brother, friend, cousin, Louis. I mean, you know, I think his name is Louis. However, you are able to create your own character and pretty much, well, make the tone and complexion of who exactly you want. I mean, it ain't no Hogwarts Legacy, but hell, it's a lot better than not having the option at all. This was one of the reasons that I really, and when I mean really, I mean really enjoyed Xenoblade Chronicles X because, you know, speaking of that sister Elma, also you got a chance to make a protagonist look like, well, you. This one of the reasons that I'm hoping and praying that one day, eventually, we're gonna get this game on the Switch. Probably the Switch 2 is the way it's looking like. But along with the skin tones, you are presented with these me-like type options for hair sets and other body types like height and your weight, your girth, that you're able to choose from. Again, it's not 2K. It ain't Hogwarts. So, I mean, if you're looking for an afro or some cornrows, my peoples, it ain't gonna be there. But, again, it is an added addition to the game that felt like it really did it. Did it really need to go this route? So, you know what? I do appreciate them actually taking the time out to make it where I can make somebody look like me. Also, in Pikmin 4, you play as a member of the Rescue Corps on a mission trying to find Mr. Warren G. See the car full of girls, ain't no need to tweak. All them skirts know what's up with 2-1-3. So I hook a left and 2-1 and Lewis. Some brothers said, okay. All right. Cool. It's cool. It's all, you know, it's all good. We're on a mission to find Olimar and his OG homie, Louis, who apparently got lost in the Matrix or somewhere in space. The demo dropped last month on the 28th, and it's said to be about 2 hours of playtime. I haven't gotten a chance to play it yet. I've been, you know, kind of knee-deep as of late in that thing called Final Fantasy XVI. Maybe you heard of it. But I have seen some streams of folks playing it, and it has caught my eye. I haven't played a Pikmin since, damn, the GameCube days. And, well, I did like Pikmin when it dropped back. What was that? Oh, my God. Like almost 20 years ago. It came out around the same time that Animal Crossing did. And if it's anything like how Animal Crossing rejuvenated my love for it, then, well, I'll pretty much probably really love Pikmin as well. One of the other things that we had to talk about, and I wanted to make it more of like a headline. I don't know why I did the hourglass shape. Hi, Jill. I wanted to talk about, because everybody and their grandmom have been complaining and crying over this fact that Final Fantasy XVI dropped last week and it has sold over 3 million units. Now, normally that's a bad thing, but I don't understand how. I guess because it's Final Fantasy. I mean, normally that's a good thing, which I don't understand how. I guess, you know, because of the fact that it's Final Fantasy. And that's a firecracker. The world of Twitter was on fire, like I just said a few days ago, and all over the interwebs, actually, in general, because Final Fantasy XVI only sold 3 million units in its first few days. And I mean, I get it. It's Final Fantasy. You know, initially you assume, since it's an FF, it's going to come out the gate swinging and sell upwards at least 5 million copies right off the bat. I'm tripping off the fact that we out here tripping that a franchise drops and in less than a week, the game's already got, well, 3 million units sold. Most games don't even get that in a lifetime. I mean, I think, was it Live a Live just hit 1 million not too long ago? And I mean, Live a Live is not Final Fantasy, but damn it, I mean, 1 million units is a lot. So 2 and 3 million units is even more. I mean, I get it. I understand. Don't get in your feelings, people, because the game is good. But just because the game is good and it has the name Final Fantasy on it does not mean that it's, you know, destined to sell. 3 million units is a lot. Honestly, I mean, it is a lot. Especially because of the fact that, well, if you think about it, this wasn't even on the Xbox. This isn't even on PC. This is just signed, sealed, delivered on the PS5. The only bad thing about that is it's been blowing up some PlayStation 5s like, well, Triangle Strategy did my OG Nintendo Switch. Had my Nintendo Switch sounding like a vacuum cleaner. Thankfully, my PS5 is, I guess, a second generation one. I didn't get it till last year, so I think I beat it where it's not, you know, where it's not overheating. No, you can get them more. I ain't got no warranty on that thing like that. You know what I'm saying? I actually think it's a double-fold reason, not only because of the Xbox not having the Final Fantasy game on its system, which probably is part of the reason for, you know, it not selling as many units as people probably think it should sell, or as many units as Final Fantasy 15 sold, which was 15 million. But then again, Final Fantasy 15 sold so many, in my estimation, is not only because of the fact that it was the first Final Fantasy out right after, which we call the debunkle of Final Fantasy 13, but also because it is the first game that was released simultaneously with PlayStation and Xbox. I'm talking about Final Fantasy 15. And 16, it didn't get that treatment. I still find it funny that PlayStation's tripping and going over and over and over about how Activision, it might go to Xbox, yet they've been having this yada lock on most JRPGs, RPGs, ARPGs. Basically, if it's strategy and reading, it seems like PlayStation had a lock on it. I mean, I get it a little bit, but, you know, I mean, one of the other reasons is also because 12, 13, 15, and even Final Fantasy 14 has slightly kind of divided the whole Final Fantasy audience. Some of us has gotten older and we value concepts of the past, and some just feel like, you know, it strayed from its tried and true roots. I personally don't think that this is a bad thing. And actually, I see Final Fantasy 16 eventually being on top of the top selling games for the series. I mean, it's only been a week and 3 million, and it's gotten good reviews. It's got solid characters. It's got a good story. The graphics are gorgeous. It's got the makings for a good modern RPG. Final Fantasy? Maybe not, maybe not, maybe not, maybe not. But time will tell. I can see it getting close to hitting double digits in 1 million. And that might happen when we get a price drop, and or also when it does make its way to PC and the Xbox, which is kind of like crazy to think that people actually got the Xbox And not only that they got the Xbox, but they're playing Final Fantasy on the Xbox. If it's any constellation, it's sold over 300,000 units in Japan. And you know, that's the motherland. So that's actually really good. I mean, it doesn't seem like it's really good, but Dragon Warrior / Dragon Quest actually does a lot better over in Japan. And Final Fantasies typically do better in the United States. So that does kind of surprise me. Plus, the PS5 is a big mofo, and we know that a lot of folks in Japan value their space. So that right there is a big thing within itself. So we're going to transition to some of the main topics, that meat and potatoes. I actually had this talking about Chrono Trigger as one of the headlines, and what had happened was, it's my favorite game. So how could I not say something about Chrono Trigger, even if just a little bit? Like, how could I not make it a longer than 15, 20, 1 minute segment? I mean, I gotta talk about Chrono Trigger, and please, in this HD-2D. So lately, there's been a lot, and I mean a lot of buzz around Chrono Trigger and Chrono Trigger remakes of some sorts. Recently, a 3D artist named Dot, I checked out his page, but you know how folks name. It could be Deep for all the hell I know. Recreated the lens square scene in HD-2D. Why, you ask? Well, of course, because Square Enix refuses to do anything with the IP. Dot is no stranger to reporting and remastering and recreating games. He did it already with Pokemon Red and a whole bunch of other classic games that you want to check out his, you know, YouTube page. I put it in the link in the description below. But, you know, now I'm always excited about hearing anything Chrono Trigger, like anything Chrono minus Chrono Cross, because, well, if it's not for the Chrono part of the name and a few little cameos, Chrono Cross is not to be mistaken with the excellence that is of Chrono Trigger. But, you know, since Square Enix has made one of the beloved IPs, mine, Chrono Trigger, like it's a Cinderella story and getting left at the ball, I feel some sort of anxiety and apprehension, and damn it, to be very honest with you, just literally, like, I don't want to see Chrono Trigger in an HD-2D setting. And the reason why is because Chrono Trigger was never supposed to be that type of game. I mean, this might go over a lot of people's heads, and, you know, I'm an OG, triple OG. Back in my day, when we used to game, we only had 2 buttons. Well, actually, we did A and B, but, you know, a little small baby controllers, regular Nintendo. But that's besides the point. What I'm trying to say is, back in my day, Chrono Trigger was actually top tier graphics when it came to the games. I mean, it might not seem like it's a big deal now, but what I'm trying to get to is, with how great and big of a project that it was before, if you do an HD 2D, it kind of seems like you're diminishing the game. And I'm not trying to talk shit about HD 2D. If you want to check my Geek facts, pull up my resume. I mean, Octopath, Triangle Strategy, Octopath 2, just in between those 3 games, I probably got 500 to 600 to close to maybe $1,000 of hours. I'm that kind of dude. So I do like the actual 2D HD part of those graphics. However, I mean, let's be real. As beautiful as the 2D HD is, Chrono Trigger was like Final Fantasy VII before Final Fantasy VII. Now hold up, before you get that up, now bear with me here. Just only for a second, y'all. See, Chrono Trigger, sadly, has eluded many of the people, and I get it. It's because it dropped in 1995, so many folks wasn't even born at that time, And not only were they not even born at that time, or if they were existing in this realm, well, guess what? You weren't conscious of Lavos and Chrono and just the game. Probably didn't really get acclimated to video games until what, 64? GameCube, and Chrono Trigger had already been, you know, flying off somewhere in the distance. And not only that, but also, well, it doesn't have any ports. Chrono Trigger did get a DS port way back in 2000, early 2000s, mid 2000s, around that time. And the DS port has been said to be the best port, which, since it's only gotten 3 ports all together, I guess that's cool. Because the PlayStation port made Chrono look just like Goku. I mean, I get it, Sakura Toriyama, but it made Goku and Chrono look like twins from the anime art style. Again, we understand, but, you know? I'm just saying. And we're not even going to talk about the Steam version, because the Steam version dropped a few years back, and the Steam version, even with the update, is still boo-boo butter. The translation is off. They got my guy Frog, who's supposed to sound like he from Middle Earth, sounding like he's Harry Belafonte or Sammy Davis Jr. They just messed up the entire everything. I had to go back and look and remember what the original text was compared with the Steam text, and I just threw it off. And I it's disappointing. I don't know why they even thought that that would be a good idea to push that out. So what I'm saying is, it's really no way, unless you're ROMing it, you better be careful though, how to play this masterpiece. So when people talk about bringing it to a 2D, HD, you know, kind of thing, I just feel that, you know, it's not fair, not only for the original creators who made Chrono Trigger, but just the game in itself. I mean, seriously. Now, Chrono Trigger has a very storied tale. It was created by the Dream Team. Also, this is going to be a trigger warning for a few of y'all, because, you know, my Japanese names is a little trash, so bear with me. Please don't, you ain't have to be nasty in the comments. Just, you know, I'm trying. It's like, for real, I'm really trying. Akira Toriyama, you know, i.e. Dragon Ball, Dragon Quest, Dragon Warrior. Nobu Uematsu, we know him, the legendary musician, the legendary composer. Yuji Horii, the Dragon Quest creator. Hanabaru Sakagachi, we know, the godfather of Final Fantasy. And Kazuhiko Aiki, I'm just gonna call him Kaz, because, you know, Kaz reminds me of the lead dude off of Rent a Girlfriend, and they both got the same name. And, you know, it's hard to, you know, pronounce that name as well. Just so, you know, he just Kaz, for, you know, for now. Yeah. The man who assembled the team, Kaz. So I guess you could say he's kind of like, you know, the whole Nick Fury of the game. So it's easy to say that the roster for the game was stacked. I remember reading a report, I think it was in Nintendo Power, or it was in one of these PlayStation magazines or something back in the day, about how one of the people, or multiple of the dudes, actually almost lost their spouse, their wife, because of how rigorous and time-consuming the work on Final Fantasy, the work on Chrono Trigger was. Because we got to think about this. This was when they were using MIDI files to make this music. And this music still, even in the MIDIs, can go head-to-head, toe-to-toe, back-to-back, Drake style, light skin movement, against pretty much any, I said light skin movement, pretty much any game almost today. Like, and that's crazy. Again, the game was made back in 1995. Now, I said all this to say this is the type and magnitude of game that Chrono Trigger is. It's got an all-star creators panel. It had a battle system and graphics that were bar none at the time. So it would be a disservice, just a travesty, in my opinion, to make this game not be the best that it could be visually and sound-wise and music-wise as it can. And there's nothing wrong with HD-2D, but Chrono Trigger would best be served as looking like, you know what, like the remake of Trials of Mana, which just dropped not too long ago. The fact that Chrono Trigger had that whole Toriyama background means it's heavy upon those art styles when it comes to animation and anime and, you know, like that. So why would you in turn dumb it down to a degree and go back to something that is actually already done? I mean, they mastered that back in 1995. And when you look at the two together, honestly, the HD-2D Chrono Trigger is not too off-putting from what the, it's not too off-putting. It's not too far off from what the base 1995 Chrono Trigger is. And I think that that's probably why a lot of people are excited and want to see that. But seriously, I mean, for those of y'all who played it and know, you know, ooh-wee. Could you imagine? Could you imagine a fully 3D world, fully 3D rendered characters with an improved battle system and maybe some type of limit or buffs, because Chrono Trigger already had the dual text. It already had the triple text between I said text. It already had the triple text between the 7 party members. I'm not going to do the math. That ain't my job. But that's a lot of correlation and discombobulating and character mixing that you can do in a 1995 game. I'm just keep emphasizing that this game looks very close to the HD-2D, and it was in a 1995 game. That means something. So shouldn't the remake or the remaster at least halfway hold up to what the predecessor was? It's also no surprise that Square Enix does not want to dabble into the whole Chrono Trigger because of the fact that it's, I don't want to say a lost IP, but they're on this whole, if it ain't making no money, and if it ain't Final Fantasy, we just ain't gonna do anything with it. I actually have a theory. I think because of all the aforementioned Dream Team people that worked on Chrono Trigger, they might not want to reprise it because it could be some kind of licensing with the way, look, and feel and the artwork from Toriyama, or they don't want to hire some of the old heads or even get advised by some of the old heads that once worked on it. And a lot of times, some companies and groups might be a little afraid that they'll ruin such a classic game. And that is a huge possibility that they could, in turn, mess up Chrono Trigger. But they just released Secret of Mana remake. I think that was a few years ago for, what was that? For PlayStation 4. And that game looked amazing. It actually looked a little more clean than Trials of Mana did, and Trials of Mana came out later. Trials of Mana felt like the colors were a little blurry. You know how the saturation is just a little too much on certain pictures? Well, that's kind of how Trials of Mana felt. But for me, the overall theme and the feel and the world for that would work much better. Or, you know what? Remember Kakarot? That's also where I can really see a Chrono Trigger game being. No disrespect again to HD-2D, 2D HD, HD-3D, 3D HD, HD HD. I'm just saying that I think that Chrono Trigger definitely should go into a different direction. I mean, something like that schmexy. Trials of Mana and or Secret of Mana remake. Because again, them jokers was gorgeous. And I mean, if we're already on the road talking about a Chrono Trigger update, remake, I said update twice, or remaster, then if you really want to get fancy, actually include some voice acting, to remake it like they did with Live a Live, because for me still, there's no excuse for Live a Live to have voice acting, but Chrono Cross, which is supposed to be, I'm doing air quotes, the sequel of Chrono Trigger, it didn't have none. How is that even possible? Maybe they were testing the waters with Cross before they did anything Trigger, but I don't know. But what I do know is, let me get this, trailer of Lens Square up off of the screen before Square Enix and them DMCA pirates come looking for your boy. I don't want that kind of heat. I really don't want that kind of heat. And next, we're going to talk about something from transitioning from the SNES to the SNES predecessor? Well, actually, the Super Nintendo and the Switch feel more closer to me when it comes to consoles, pretty much than any other one. Actually, my favorite console when it comes to Nintendo Switch consoles would, currently, it might be the Nintendo Switch, because the Nintendo Switch, if it comes out with anything Chrono Trigger, even just the DS remake, it will go down as my favorite Nintendo system. Currently, 1A is still the Super Nintendo, and the reason why the Super Nintendo is my favorite system of Nintendo is because of Donkey Kong Country games. We're talking about the F-Zeros of the world. We're talking about the Star Foxes. We're talking about Chrono Trigger, Earthbound. We're talking about Lufia 2, Rise of the Sinister, Secret of Mana. We're talking about Secret of Evermore, and that was the Secret of Mana back in the day, where it actually had the multi-tap. You used to be able to play with 3 players. The first and only game that I remember in the RPG back in the day, you were able to plug in the 3 players and you could play as the sprite. You could play, and what was the girl's name? I forgot her name. Petra, start with a P or something like that. Not Paula, but Petra, Persona, something, Palm, but she was actually kind of like maybe the best character. One good thing they did for her, she looked funny like a Muppet on the Super Nintendo one. I think on the books they had her as some kind of claymation or something, but in the update that actually gave her a little physique, and it actually made her kind of cute. So they did fix it a little bit more. If they did do a Chrono Trigger remake, maybe they would take that big forehead of Meryl and fix it up, even though I'm a Luca dude, but still, I say all that to say that the Nintendo Switch is my second favorite system console of Nintendo right now. And as much as I love it, guess what, y'all? It's time for a new Nintendo Switch. It's really time for a new Nintendo Switch. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend I know all the specs. X processor, Z, homing device, and all 17 solid state drives. That's not what I do. Now, I'm gonna say that for the experts, but what I will do is I will say that the Nintendo Switch has done and made strides not only in the gaming market, but also within the accessories market, which they wanted to do, feeding us them peripherals and feeding us more Nintendo Switches that we really don't need, but just in a smaller, new skin, new colored version with the new $70 Joy-Cons. So it's really a match made in heaven, not only for us as consumers, but also a match made in heaven, especially when it comes to Nintendo, because Nintendo has the liberty to go out there and create the Labo and the racing game and all these other peripherals, they almost like they were Sega, that they want, while still staying true and core to the core gameplay, which is one of the things that I like. With the Nintendo Switch 2, they need to follow that
Nintendo
path
Switch.
and still
That's
continue
my
to
way to
have
play.
those elements in it and not stray too far off from, well, what they did with the whole Wii and the Wii U. The problem with the Wii U was the fact that it wasn't that it was a shitty system, it was shitty marketing on Nintendo's part. When Nintendo launched the Wii U back in 2012, 2013, nobody knew what the hell it was. Everybody just sat and thought that it was
Catching up
a
together.
tablet that
That's my way
connected
to
to
play.
your Wii. And to be very honest with you, they would have done better with just having some kind of plug and play type thing that plugs into the Nintendo Wii, almost a Switch, like it did with the Game Boy Advance or the Game Boy Player, where you're able to play the Game Boy games with that. And that would have saved a lot of drama. But to go and make a new system of $350 and then not market it and just expect that the success of your previous system was going to carry over, no wonder the damn thing only sold, what, 14 million units. And when I did play it, nobody was online because nobody had it. Yeah, they had a couple handful of games, but I really feel that the Nintendo Switch 2 is not going to go that route. I would actually like you to see it go the route of, Nintendo wanting to actually fight back or compete with modern day gaming. Rumors have been surfacing that Nintendo Switch's new system is at least going to be on par with the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One, which, in 2023, I know it's handheld, it's a hybrid, we're taking it on the go, but that seems kind of sad, doesn't it? Especially with all these new handhelds that came out with the success of the Switch. We've gotten, the new system, the Arborvita, I don't know the name, is the white sleek system. That wanted to match and, try to get some of that Steam Deck money.
You can be my co-star.
And Steam Deck, actually, you can run some mods for Switch that actually work better on the Steam Deck. So, for y'all who know Nintendo, like I know Nintendo, you know that they might not come out swinging off the gates and try to compete with the big boys because, and I'm talking about Xbox and PlayStation because, well, for one, they're a gaming company. I always say this all the time because sometimes we, just get misconstrued at the everyday fan, and even us that's, influencers and people who talk about this all the time, we kind of forget sometimes. Some of us, Nintendo is primarily a gaming company. It's over 100 years old. They started with cards and end up working up to pocket watches and other little gaming watches and stuff like that. But their money, their bread and butter, is all about them video games. And if you play or know enough about Nintendo games, that's one of the reasons a lot of their characters don't talk. It's not about story. It's about gameplay. It's about learning how to play, picking up a controller and just playing the game. That's Nintendo. That's always been Nintendo's claim to fame. Nintendo said it a long time ago when it came to when PlayStation and Xbox and Dreamcast and all these other systems were connecting to the internet as well as connecting to CDs and DVDs. What did they say? Nintendo said, we're not going to do that. We're going to stick to the nitty gritty of gaming. Well, one of the reasons is it's expensive to make these chips. It's expensive to add all these peripherals and extras into a system for it to fail, and then, or for the plastic and the other hardware and hardware that has to be, done for the software to make it work. And they only have a limited amount of resources. They aren't Sony, which, even though those are different divisions, both Microsoft with Xbox and Sony with the movies and with that, but they still have another backing that they'll be okay. Nintendo is what Nintendo is, and that's a gaming company. Sony is cinematic, and that's why you notice, even like just playing Final Fantasy XVI, it's super cinematic, and that's why all the cutscenes are cinematic. And if you look at most of the first person or first party games for Sony, they all follow that trend. Even when Tomb Raider took over the reins for PlayStation, it was a cinematic action-based button game like Final Fantasy 16 just was, and or God of War has been when it comes to that. More action, cinematic storytelling than gameplay, i.e. Tears of the Kingdom, or which I still would love to see an open world Metroid game, but that's that's a topic for a whole nother day. As far as Microsoft, y'all know Microsoft always had the best UI interface and the best online structure. Microsoft's problem has always been what? Games. And let's see if they buy something up. But the fact that a Nintendo Switch 2 may not even be as strong or as powerful as the Xbox One or the PlayStation 4 could definitely be a problem. I mean, if it can be as powerful as a Stream Deck, we as consumers, as people, as folks, like I know, you jump into a whole new Nintendo Switch and replay and rebuy Tears of the Kingdom for $70, which would make more sense if we finally got it at a 1080 60 frame or at least a 1080 30 native, which I don't know how they did it, but Tears of the Kingdom ran so much better and smoother than
having fun. That's
Breath of the Wild did. Even though Breath of the Wild was technically for a previous system, or was it? Or no, that was another one. But technically, it was old, outdated,
What are you doing
and
now?
you can kind of tell. So imagine now how the Nintendo Switch
Okay, you can be my co-star.
is coming from 2017 to going on to 2024. And it feels like Nintendo's doing this whole ushering in the new era of gaming a lot faster, which is smart because they're taking up a market that, when did they say that Xbox and PlayStation was going to be bringing out a new system? I think they said they were going to be doing something new as close as 2026 or something like that. I don't know about Xbox. I ain't ready for that. I'm still waiting to go drop down to $200 so I can pick one up. But I'm getting away from myself, just going on a mini rant. What I do want to say before I close this whole topic about the Nintendo Switch, some of the things that I really would love to see for the Nintendo Switch are things that they've already been doing or initiating here for years. And that is that VR. I think that Nintendo Switch would be the perfect, or the Nintendo Switch 2 would be the perfect component or the perfect partner to do something like that, because we don't want to say that we don't take it necessarily serious, but one of the problems that's happened with VR is it's not a lot of games. And I just mentioned one of the things that Nintendo Switch, or Nintendo in general, really specializes in is the whole gameplay and creating games. Wario Woods for the Virtual Boy was actually pretty good, except for the fact that after you finish playing the game, you've seen the little red lines for a few minutes. Now that wasn't good. What I also would like to see again is, can we get a system that at least is better than the last system and has some kind of upgraded smooth graphics where when Star Ocean 6 drops, or this new Final Fantasy, it drops, or when these new Square Enix games, because Square Enix and Nintendo have been playing around in the background when thinking nobody looking, but we see it. We see it. They just ain't fully committed. And being fully committed is, can we get these mainline games for a Nintendo system? And that is because of the fact that it's underpowered. Nintendo will get more third-party games if, well, it's powerful enough to get them. And I don't want to hear about the Switches. The Switch is not powerful. I love my Switch, but let's be real. And I love Nintendo, but it's not powerful. Again, it hasn't competed since the Dreamcast, PlayStation 2, and Xbox days. And even then, they gave themselves their own little clause where they didn't have to compete by making the smaller discs, which is still end up in turn not being cartridges, but end up in turn being harder to create disc, or for their mini disc structure. So it's something that I think that they should address. I don't think they will. Another fan service type thing that I would like to see, but it won't probably happen, is making it where it has some kind of casting where instead of docking your system, we can actually have some kind of dongle, or you can even make it an accessory that we have to buy, and then you're able to hook it up to your TV just by through the Switch, where you're actually on your Switch and you just press like a cast button and you're able to jump from one screen to the other screen. The ability to be able to use the other games would be really, really nice too. It's no way, no how, please don't. With over 1,000 something games, these little bitty cartridges, you have to in turn make the system backwards compatible, so then that way we can play the whole host of library of games that we had before. And I know a lot of companies don't like to spend the extra money to do that, but as consumers, we really don't like to spend the extra money because on all these games, and now you're raising the price, and then you tell me I just bought a $70 game and I can't play it on my new system. That's something, you know, that they need to fix. So virtual reality, I love to see. Casting, I love to see. A smoother processing system. You know, one thing I will say that I did like about the Wii U, better than the Wii and better than the Switch, is I actually like the whole home screen. I would love to finally see some type of achievement, whether it matters or not. Let me have the option to be able to take it off. You put the bacon on my sandwich. If I don't want it, I take it off. I should have said pickles. I really don't like pickles. If it's bacon on my sandwich, I'm about to eat the bacon. But if it's pickles, something about warm pickles. I don't know about y'all, but it's something about warm pickles. I'm not a big fan of warm pickles. But before we go too far down that rabbit hole, I got to talk about the last topic of discussion for the night, and that is Final Fantasy 16. I've already pressed the button I don't know how many times. I must have been excited to sit and talk about Final Fantasy 16, but y'all, I finally beat the game, and I enjoyed it. Actually, I would have to just initially say Final Fantasy 16 is one of the best Final Fantasies, definitely in my opinion the best new Final Fantasy, excluding 14 and excluding 11, which who decided to make those online game FFOs be on the main line. This game really probably should be Final Fantasy 15 or no 14 instead, and then the other ones would have been FFO2. And you see how Fantasy Star has PSO2, PSO. That's my opinion what it felt like they should have did, but I guess, you know, the cookies is crumbled and the milk is gone. That ship is sailed. But I did beat Final Fantasy 16, and guess what? Final Fantasy 16 is a Final Fantasy. And I know what you heard. I know what you've seen, and I know how you feel. Because honestly, I felt the same way about a lot of games, and I felt this way about this game initially. In certain parts in the game, I just was like, this don't feel like Final Fantasy. Now, you don't have to worry. I'm not going to go and talk too much. So first and foremost, like I was just saying, I won't talk about any spoilers. I will kind of speed through the game. I intentionally, sped through the game so I could avoid having spoilers on my end. And this coming from a guy who Eris was spoiled for him back in 97, like literally about a month after the woman first died. Somebody spoiled it for me. So I never, ever do that to somebody. And then secondly, this is not going to be an official review because, let's call it PGC or, post-game clarity. It's only been a day or some change since I beat the game, so I want to have a moment to kind of sink in and really kind of collect my thoughts on exactly what I want to say about the game. You know what I mean? Before I just jump in and I just really wanted to jump in and talk about it because I was excited about it and it hit me. I wanted to discuss how Final Fantasy is technically not Final Fantasy like it used to be, but it's still Final Fantasy. Does that make sense? The elephant in the room, you know, we got to get that out of the way. The elephant in the room is this Cid is the best Cid in the entire series. That's all Final Fantasies. Seriously. Like, mostly Cid's a bum. Mostly, the Cids in the game, they don't do too much nada. They either old men or old bumbling men, or they're old men that are so old they can't really, you know, go out and actually battle. There's really no competition for it either. I mean, I thought before this Cidolphisis, this Cid, my favorite Cid was the one from Final Fantasy VII, which again was the reason because we got an actual chance to go out and play with this Cid, you know, so that's one of the things that made me like him. Also, the whole thing with the space and how that happened, and he had his little girlfriend, which found out came to be in turn to come to be the man's wife, and all these other things. So I'm like, that's cool that we actually got a Cid to really dig into the meat of his story. But Cid follows Cidaringo, Cid the Outlaw, the number 2 husbando, whatever you want to call this dude, whoever Cid and whatever Cid comes back or comes behind this dude is going to be hard times. It's going to be very similar to how when Heath Ledger passed and he was the Joker for the Batman movie, and it was just like a gap there, and then they end up getting Jared Leto to do it. And yeah, they just do like he's just a sacrificial actor. He was just a martyr because they just wanted to get over the hump, and then they end up getting a better Joker, which was a different Joker within Joaquin Phoenix. So whoever does the next Cid, maybe Cid will come back in Final Fantasy 17. That's probably gonna be a bump one, or they'll probably do some kind of new Cid and another Final Fantasy spin-off or some crap. And then when the next Cid from 18 or something come back, maybe that one will be better. And speaking of Jared Leto, is this as a side note, he wasn't good in Morbius either. My dude probably should just not, you know, mess with these comic book movies no more. Funny thing is, Spawn is having a new movie come out. If they make Jared Leto cast him as Spawn, I'm done. I can't watch no more. I can't. If they do that, if anything like that, I can't do it no more. I can't do it no more. They're probably going to go back to the trash Cid and cleanse the palettes and stuff, though, like I was saying, and try like a new one on 18 or 19, like we did with the DC Heath Ledger thing. But, you know, we'll see when it comes to Cid. Like I said, I can't say too much. I won't go too far, because I just will say that this Cid is the best one that we've seen in generations. It's only probably 2 or 3 that's noteworthy. I also have to address something else that bothered me in the entire game, from start to finish. And for me, this is the main thing that made it not feel like a Final Fantasy for me. And that's the lack of being able to control the members of your party. Now, that's not a spoiler. We sensed that on the demo, and when you first start playing the game, you see that. And I think that that is a travesty. And I'm sorry if I yelled in y'all ear. That's a travesty. How you ain't gonna let me play with Jill? So you did that to me with Luna Freya and Cindy. I couldn't play with them at all. Now you gonna let the girl come to my party. We out here rocking the boat like Aaliyah. We out here dancing. We out here giving each other the eye. But you're not in my. I can't check it. Okay. I searched. I scouted. I prayed. And to no avail. None. As much as I like Jill, as cool as the OG Triple OG Cid is, I can't control him. No equipping, no status checking, no leveling up. And even though they follow you from place to place in the game. They don't talk. They don't say shit. They don't really communicate or have like a dialogue with each other. How does Star Ocean, the stepchild of the company, have more and better dialogue between characters than the main game franchise? How? And before I go too far down the rabbit hole, I've said the rabbit hole 4 times this podcast. I've said the rabbit hole 4 times. Like, it just feels like I just had a moment. I'm sorry, y'all. It just feels like the game is good, but it just felt like Final Fantasy X and many other Final Fantasies, even like 7 and 8, which did not primarily deal with some of the things you would consider traditional Final Fantasies, felt more Final Fantasy, in my opinion, than Final Fantasy 16. And both 16 and 10 both deal with the summonings, which is crazy. And again, I'm not going to count 14, mainly because it feels weird. 11 and 14 are considered part of the mainline series when they're both online games. And I get it. The numbers don't lie. It sold the most. I'm talking about 14 out of all the games, which, it should be noted that because it dropped in 2013. So you got 10 years of a game that's continuously going on. It's no wonder that, it's got the numbers that it's gotten. But all the things that make up a franchise are there. The Moogles, the Chocobos, the Crystals, a budding romance, magic, but something's still missing. Something was still missing. And while the game is definitely a Final Fantasy, it just feels like just a couple things, just for it to get that perfection, just that it's a few things are just off. Maybe it's the lack of diversity in the game. Yeah, Final Fantasy is not known for having a lot of black characters in any of the games. Most of them look very Eurocentric for that matter, but at least every now and again, at bare minimum, there's a bear here, or a Shaz there, or a Kira over there. It was just baffling that certain areas, which seem like they would support and have more cultural or ethnicity and multicultural, situations, you didn't have any. I thought I did see one sister, and I jumped up and down, almost dropped my controller, and then I realized she just had a deep tan. It could also be the lack of female character influence. A lot of the female characters that are in game are well, but it just feels like, when you eat and you eat, but you still hungry after, like something missing, like, oh yeah, I had that, but that didn't stop the hunger. I need more. That's what it felt with a lot of the female characters within the story. And that also goes for my baby, Jill. While I love Jill, she's a beauty and I enjoy and admire her resolve. It just feels like the writers didn't fully let her be free. Free as, let's say, Renoa or Aerith, Tifa, Yuna, Celeste, or even Garnet. Now, of course, again, Final Fantasy seriously hasn't seemed like Final Fantasy since the old days, but this could be, like I already mentioned, due to the fact that we can't control any of the other characters that's in the party, that could be one of the main factors why I'm kind of like, each character, whether good, bad, or Queena, have their own magic, their own skills, and their own play styles in every other Final Fantasy. And by taking that away, to me, in essence, kind of feels like a super Western game. It feels like I'm playing Skyrim, but my characters don't die. They don't die, by the way. Your party members, they don't die. They don't use items. They help and heal. The enemies in the AI don't even attack them most of the time. Every now and again, they'll attack them if they're in a way of a, like an AoE. But for the most part, they're there. Now, many of y'all remember and know I complain about this for forever and a day when it comes to Elden Ring, when it comes to Dark Souls, when it comes to Skyrim, when it comes to a lot of Fallouts, when it comes to a lot of games like this, even if they're made in Japan, that Western influence is a lonely one. And even though I'm not alone, like, you're teasing me, Square Enix. Can I play with the rest of the party members? You ain't gonna tell me that the homie Sid, his movesets and limits wouldn't be raw? You ain't gonna tell me that Jill, being Jill, wouldn't be click with the rapier? Alright. I can't. Other than that, I honestly really enjoyed the game, but 30 hours in, I was still looking around, irritable and upset. A little bit, I can't lie, that I couldn't change, my party members. But when you take the element out, I mean, you're just with Clive. When you strip it down, you're just Clive. And I've seen a lot of people complain and talk about that, and that's why they don't consider it a Final Fantasy. They consider it more of a DMCA. And who was that? Or not a DMCA, God, they coming for me. For a Devil May Cry 5. And somebody, was it God of War? Or I think God of War said it, the creators of God of War said God of War is more of an RPG than Final Fantasy 16. Now, I wouldn't completely agree with that, but you can control some of the characters on God of War, even if you couldn't control them. At least the ability to be able to set them parameters and stuff up, or let the AI control them, would have been nice. I can't even look at my baby status. So essentially, I was just there 90% of the game by myself, which was still good, but it had its moments where it wasn't. I wanted more. Truthfully, Final Fantasy, the story, and the characters haven't been, Final Fantasy since Hanabaru Sakagachi stepped down after Final Fantasy X in 03. The new helm of Square Enix decided to go with a whole new type of, formula, which was more sequels and more cost-efficient routes, i.e., while we have Final Fantasy X2, even though Sakagachi was still on that a little bit, but while we had 3 of 13, 1, 2, and 3, how we got 11, how we end up getting all these extras and type zeros and other spin-offs, and kind of saturated the market for when it came to Final Fantasies. And it's no wonder that it's a question now whether Final Fantasy is still the king of RPGs, which, no, it's not. The Personas of the world, the Skyrims of the world, the Elden Rings of the world, the Shinigami Tenseis, it's the Disgaeas since 2003, when Final Fantasy was the king of its domain. A lot of shit has changed, and a lot of stuff that they used to be able to do, they can't do anymore. Not only that, because a lot of stuff that they used to do, they don't do anymore at all. I get it. They wanted to be more cost efficient, go down that route, especially after the movie studio went bankrupt. They just wanted to focus more on what they already had and that they can use the assets for and then sell over and over again. And it worked. Look at Kingdom Hearts. But the source, the root, and the backbone of all Final Fantasies generally starred a female character. Whether that was Terra or Renoa, Eric, Tifa, y'all know the drill. I just went down the list of all the women before. The story was based around the ladies. They were the most pivotal part in the game. and we took up the point of view of a male protagonist. They tried to do that with Final Fantasy XII. However, it didn't really work, mainly because of the fact that Ash should have been the star, and Vaughn was trashy. Vaughn is probably one of the worst protagonists ever, Treasure Planet or not, just in RPGs in general. I'm sorry if he's your favorite. That's just my opinion. But Titus gets a lot of rap. And when Titus and Hope are running and talking shit about Vaughn, then, you know, it's probably, okay, well, yeah, Vaughn and Hope, they neck and neck. They neck and neck. They really neck and neck. But not since 12 have they continued that formula and tried to continue that formula. With Lightning and 13, they went a whole new, different kind of way. And I still need to go back and beat 13. I get to the end multiple times, and I just don't care. One day, I'll go back. And again, look, you don't have to tell me. I mean, I know. I get it. The only constant in life is change. So I was expecting, and I wasn't upset when they changed a lot of things when it came to Final Fantasy. And I, for one, don't mind the battle system. I think I've already said it. I actually like the battle system. I felt that it was something they had to do to keep pace with the Elden Rings and the Skyrims and the Dragon's Dogma and the action fast-paced, we don't have attention spans, we need more modern-day gamers to like our stuff formula. I understood that. So I get that part of it, you know, going and bleeding into the Western market. But what I am upset about is, again, I only get a chance to play as Clive. And that, if anything else, really feels like I'm stuck in a Western market game that's just kind of painted like a Final Fantasy. And the ability, I just can't keep saying it, but it hurts. The ability to rotate members is a fundamental element in games. More than the Chocobos, more than the Moogles, being able to control, assimilate, delegate, and all the other water gates, everything else kind of gate to your party is really what makes an FF. There's also a sense of realism in the game. Talking about 16, not the graphics. Yeah, the graphics are great, gorgeous. Some of the best graphics I've seen to date, and I'm not even rocking 4K. But if you've watched Game of Thrones, if you've seen anything about Game of Thrones, then you'll know Final Fantasy 16 is a real huge bite off of Game of Thrones and Attack on Titan. Mostly off of Game of Thrones. Now, I know what you're going to say. Quentin, you crazy. Bro, geek, guy. And I'm going to say to you, you know nothing, Clive Snow. You know nothing, Clive Snow. Literally, it feels like J.J.R. Martin and his boys, they wrote Clive. He's just a better jawline than, you know, Kit Harington from that played Jon Snow. And again, I'm not going to go too far into certain similarities or even the similarities between antagonists and contagonists or other protagonists, because that's borderline spoiler, and I want y'all to experience the game as much and as good and as you can, because it is a good game. And I know it is medieval, and a lot of other Final Fantasies are medieval, but even some of the ones that were medieval and the ones that weren't medieval still had that more of a fantasy feeling when it came to their world building. Like, for example, Midgar felt like a fantasy place, even if it was near modern day. And that also goes for 8, and that also goes for 9, with the whole troop of thieves that traveled the world. It just felt like fantasy based, like more fantastical. Final Fantasy VI was also medievalish, but it had a steampunk like vibe, and it still retained that whole fantasy feel. I even argue that Final Fantasy X felt like more of a fantasy atmosphere than 16 even did, and they both focused on summons. One felt like a complete fictional world filled with fantasy, talking about 10, and the other medieval with fantasy, Final Fantasy assets inserted, i.e. crystals, chocobos, moogles. But 16 is good. I keep saying it. A step in the right direction. I finished with about 60 hours, 68, 69 hours, almost 70 hours. And the only things I need to do are the end game or new game plus things. I will go and attempt to try to get the platinum trophy on it, because I've only gotten one platinum. I think I've gotten two, from Final Fantasy VII-R and from Tales of Arise. So, you know, this is one of the things I say I would like the Switch 2 to actually have is, you know, along with the better internet, also is notifications. It feels good when you do something that's ultra rare and not everybody else can do or did do. So, that part I'll probably stream, but I'm done with the game. I'm done with the game. There's some other details or critiques that I definitely like to go to, but again, I'm gonna say that for a review. And Final Fantasy XVI is, especially for newcomers, a great game and a new pace and a okay direction for the series. I could give this game is one of the best Final Fantasies, if not for just, in my opinion, a few of those little bitty quirks. And sometimes those little bitty quirks can make a big impact on the game, like not being able to play as Luna Freya, like having Jill in my party and Sid and other characters, but not truly being able to use them. Could you just imagine? Could you imagine only playing as Cloud, but not being able to play as Cloud and Tifa and Aerith and Barrett and Sid and Vincent and Cat Sith and Yuffie? Look at those cast of characters. That's why Square Enix keeps going and harping on Final Fantasy VII, because that was their franchise. That was their money. That's their flagship game. Flagship game. That's the reason they keep beating it down. I'm still, even after enjoying, loving, and playing Final Fantasy XVI, more excited with the liberties and with the battle system and being able to control Tifa. Do you love me? Do you want me? What? Then I am with Final Fantasy XVI, because even though it has a whole fresh new cast, I ain't gonna change. At least I know what I'm getting into with 7, and I can control the characters. I can control my own characters. But the game is good. I enjoyed it, minus some of the little critiques that I have. I suggest it. It is a system seller. I ran out of stuff to say. I exhausted myself. So, on that one, interweb, I'm going to let y'all go. Again, this has been the Geek Talk, episode 20. Damn, it's a little late tonight, but the show always must go on. If you did like this video, do me a favor and hit that like button. And if you're new to my channel and you want to stay up to date with all things games, especially them RPGs, and all things geek, make sure you hit that subscribe button. I make videos here on the channel all the time. And now, the Geek Talk on Sundays. Archives coming soon on Saturdays. And as always in the web, remember to eat, sleep, geek, repeat. I'll holler at y'all next time. Peace.